Hello, everybody. I'm Terry Owens, and welcome to Conversations with TO, where people share how they are making life better for themselves and for others. Have you ever been presented with an opportunity only to be gripped by fear? I'll never forget being asked to lead the student intern project for the National Association of Black Journalists. They had a broadcast wing, and I was called in as a former TV anchor to say, is this something you'd be willing to help us out with? I was honored, but at the same time, I was consumed by fear. And it was simply fear of failure. I didn't want to be a flop. Yet somehow I muscled up the courage to say yes. Of course, I had launched a chapter in mid Michigan. I'd resurrected a dormant chapter in the state of Maryland. So it seemed like something I could do, right? But my first thought was to tell myself that how am I going to coordinate all of these volunteers from across the country? Could I really find all of the resources I would need to support these kids for a week? Could I deliver a meaningful experience for these aspiring journalists? And, you know, there was also having to chaperone these 18 to 21-year-olds for a week. All of that looked pretty daunting, but, I said, we can pull a team together and we can make this work. And that's exactly what happened. I think there's no proverb that says if you want to go fast, go alone. But if you want to go far, go together. So I put together a team. We delivered an awesome experience for the young people. And I was reminded of that just this week. A young man dropped me a line to say, you won't remember me, but I was in your program down in Orlando. And it was a tremendous experience for me, and I've never forgotten it. And my life is really so much richer for having found a way to say yes. I believe everyone has the capacity to lead. You just have to be willing to take a step on the other side of fear. And so now let's get to our guest. I am really excited about this conversation today. Let me bring Desiree onto the stage. There she is. Hello, Desiree.
Hi, Terry. How are you?
Good, good. Let me tell folks just a little bit about you. I won't read the whole bio, but I want to give them some context. Desiree, of course, is an expert in the field of leadership development. She specializes in helping women, leaders, and organizations increase their impact, their performance, their income, and perhaps most important, their joy, which is something I really want to talk about. She's an award-winning author and host of the podcast, Get Your Life Today. And I'm delighted to welcome Desiree Cocroft to Conversations with TO. Desiree, what was it that attracted you to this work?
Oh, I love that question. So, my first job was when I was 17 years old. And when I was 17, a teacher came to me and said, hey, I have the perfect position for you. And I had never had a job before. And the job was to be a teen mentor to middle school students and fourth and fifth graders. And I had to teach them self esteem, self image, decision making, healthy relationships. And as a 17-year-old, I'm still trying to figure those things out. Yet I was given the big audacious task to train students in that. And I found that that was my calling. That was my power, my superpower to really help people ignite their potential. And so being able to see their lives light up as a result of what they learned about themselves, it made me know that that's the kind of work that I wanted to keep doing.
So fast forward to today and these high-powered professional women that you're working with, what are some of the kinds of challenges they're facing?
You know what? It's big on confidence. So in my book, confidence comes when you decide. And I think that confidence is a big issue among women leaders. And I would just say leaders in this generation, regardless, because of the way our society is set up. Back in the day, you only had to worry about who was talking about you in the room you were actually in. And now you have to worry about who's talking about you in rooms that you're not in. They don't know you. They've never been in a position like you. And you have access to their feedback when before you didn't hear everyone's feedback all the time. And so I think that that has caused a lot of people to feel more stuck in their decision making and to be required more than I think ever before to really articulate their intent and their why so that people can genuinely and authentically know who they are and where they're coming from. And I think that that can be something that is intimidating to a lot of leaders. So I feel like that is the biggest thing. How do I be a leader? How do I stand? How do I stand in my gravitas? How do I make really great decisions? How do I grow and still be well liked or well known for someone that is genuine, someone that has integrity, and all of the attributes that most leaders want to identify themselves as having?
And then when you add to that the fact that we're living in this almost 24/7 environment where
Yeah,
we're now connected to these silly things all the time. You can't get away from work. You
yeah,
don't have a chance to recharge, decompress because you're always on. It makes
yeah,
me crazy to see folks sitting in restaurants when they should be having a conversation with whoever they're with and they've got their head down in a phone. How
yeah.
is technology creating problems as opposed to creating more opportunities for us?
Yeah, I think it's making us look for validation from the wrong places and keeping us from being present. If I can say it in short, like when I think about validation from the wrong places, we're looking for people that we're not really directly involved with to give us validation from what we're posting or what we're saying about ourselves. And it keeps us from losing focus of the people that are actually in our present state, the people that we see every day, that we connect with every day. And the more that we can actually make real life connections with them and do it in a genuine, fully present way, we'll see some different changes in our relationships for the better, whether it's working relationships or whether it's personal relationships. But I think as long as we are looking for validation or looking to just show up online and get that validation from a click or from an engaging space, and don't really create strong boundaries in those spaces, we'll lose touch with the people whose feedback really matters.
Okay. So now
Mhm.
how do you work with women? Is it a group setting? Is it one-on-one?
Yeah.
Once a
So
week, once a month? How does this work?
yeah, it really depends, but usually weekly. And so I do one-on-one work weekly with women leaders. And when I do that, it's for about an hour, and we really set the pace based on what they want to work on. And usually it is something around confidence, gravitas, learning to coach and develop those that they work with. When they are doing that, and if they are leaders that also have like a really good expertise in the area of their work, they're also looking to work on their personal brand. And so I'm usually helping them find their voice in that area as well. And so that's usually the pace I work with them on. And sometimes it's 3 months and sometimes it's for a year. But I found that 3 months is kind of like a good happy space because usually they just need some support in whatever their transition is, either in their career or if they're stepping out on their own in a business.
Hmm.
Yeah.
When you see high profile women and some of the pressure cooker situations that they find themselves in, people like, say, a Fani Willis or
Mm.
Kamala Harris. I know those are extremes, of course, but how would you advise them so that they don't completely lose touch with their joy?
Yeah, I love that. And so I really encourage those that I work with to have a practice in place, something that is in an intentional practice that they do every day to experience joy. Because I think that some of us make joy or finding relief or finding rest an event, like a one time event, like, oh, if I'm on
Mm.
vacation, that's when I'm going to experience joy, or I'm going to hold my breath all day while I'm working. And I'm going to experience joy when the day is over, when that's actually not healthy for us to kind of hold tension for an extreme amount of time. And so I really help people find like, well, what is that practice that you can have throughout the day to help you be intentionally relaxed or intentionally present? So I did a lot of study around positive psychology. I'm a positive intelligence coach. And so I talk a lot about how we can lean into our positive emotions. And positive emotions are created in even the smallest things. Sometimes it's just taking that sip, right? It's like Folgers in your cup, right? So you take a sip of your coffee, or when you're smiling at someone, or when you feel refreshed when you walk outside. So there are really small ways that we find joy throughout the day. And so helping them define like which one of those things could you implement throughout the day to help you kind of get back to neutral? Because much of it is about self regulation. And we self regulate ourselves or pacify ourselves throughout the day, but we haven't always articulated what is it that we actually do. Like, I know I'll go take a walk or I'll get up. I'm very kinesthetic when I know I need to break or I need to regulate myself. Or I love food, I love tea. So sipping warm tea or warm drinks really help me kind of get back to neutral. So we have things that we've kind of used, but I think we haven't always articulated it. So helping them articulate what is it that they're doing with intention so they can experience that joy on the regular, but then also having planned intentional times where you do block out to experience and be present with the people that you're with.
Yeah, and how important is it that you not allow your escapes, if you will, to become things that perhaps may not be so good for you. We'll
Yeah.
have that glass of wine in the evening,
Mhm.
every evening, that could turn into two or three. Uh,
Yeah.
how do you coach around that? Because I'm sure that becomes an issue for some people.
Yeah, it does. And so I'm glad I'm glad you said that and even brought that up. I encourage people or I invite them to consider how something is serving them. And so if they are doing something that is overindulgent and they have gotten outcomes that they haven't really liked from that behavior, I'm asking them, like, well, how is that serving you? Because it's serving them in some way. Like you
Mhm.
said, it's an escape, right? And I remember I saw once, I don't know who actually said this quote, but they said, if you need to take it a vacation from your life, you need to change your life. And I'm like, that is so true. We were like, I got to get away. It's like, we actually need to change your everyday life if you feel like you got to get away that bad. And so that's really where the conversation starts. So if they find that they're getting results that they don't like, and we can pinpoint to certain behavior, how is that serving you? Oh, well, it's helping me escape. Well, if you have, what are you escaping from, right? What is the thing that you're escaping from? And if that thing did no longer exist, how would you then spend your time after work? So really just helping people visualize what they actually want instead of what they are doing, which is putting a band-aid over a bullet wound.
Mhm.
Yeah.
I'd love to hear you. You've worked with, gosh, thousands of people over the years, but is there a transformation story, something that you could share with me? Of course, maintaining confidence, but
Yeah.
somebody that you've worked with and you've seen them turn the situation around.
Yeah, I actually have a few of those. One person, she was looking to actually start having clients. She works in a manufacturing company, a senior director, and a woman of color that really wanted to help other women of color grow in their careers because she felt that when she was young in her career, especially in tech, she didn't get an opportunity to have as many mentors guide her along the way, and she was kind of figuring things out. So she wanted to do it as a give back, but she also wanted to be something that could be a business for her later on. And so helping her figure out, well, what is it that you want to offer to people, encouraging her to speak on stages that would give her the opportunity to talk more about it and to be consistent in something that was sharing her personal brand. And so as a result, she was able to land her first client and speak on a lot of different stages to kind of get her brand going. And so for her, she really enjoys her job. So she didn't want to leave her job, but she wanted to have something that was like a display of what she had on the inside of her.
Mhm.
That eventually she may do full time, but for now, she just needed to prove to herself that this is something that I can do. And then I have another story of one person that it took a year for us to work together, but in our year of working together, I am not a therapist, but she had breakthroughs that were probably very therapeutic to her life as it related to her confidence and how she saw herself. She really needed to make some transitions in the way that she spoke about who she is to herself, as well as how she talked to those that were above her. And so she was middle management, so to speak. And so when she would talk to her senior management, she had to display more of a gravitas and confidence. So she
Mhm.
did that and realized how good she is at what she does. And she left her position to go for a higher position that almost 50% more income. And she was able to get all the things she needed to care for her family. Her and her family were expanding their family. So she wanted to be at home more often. And now she just finished writing her first draft of her book She's on the speakers bureau for somewhere. And it's just, I love to be able to see the transformation of people saying that they want something and feeling so far away from it. And then suddenly they're in it.
Hmm. So who inspires you?
Oh, I have a lot of people that inspire me. Tabitha Brown is actually my current favorite person right now, mostly because she has taken a lot of time to focus on one thing over the course of time and not letting up on it. And then also, and when I say not letting up on it, like she was consistently talking to her audience, and that's what I mean. She was consistently talking to her audience, even though some of her topics changed. She was very comedic early on when she was creating her community, and then really started leaning into her life as a vegan eater, and then it just opened up more doors for some of the other things that she's done. So now she has her hair care line, and she does different things in the community and in a lot of the self-development spaces. And so I really admire her consistency, and so she's someone that I'm currently, I fan over a lot of people, but she's my current one right now, Tabitha Brown.
That's great. That's great. Well, you mentioned briefly the book. You're also doing a podcast. We've got a couple minutes
Yeah,
left. Why don't you
sure.
touch briefly on what you do with your podcast?
Yeah, so my podcast is called Get Your Life Today, and my book is called Get Your Life Today: 7 Success Hacks for Life, Leadership, and Business. And so on the podcast, I really provide tips, and I tell stories of how I have done things that will help me overcome areas in my life, in my career, and in my business. And when I think about career, I think about it from a leadership perspective. So it's life, leadership, and business tips, and I share my stories, and I'm hoping to share stories of other people more on my first couple of seasons. It's basically just me on there, which is not a bad thing. However, I want to help more people come on and share their stories because I've been so inspired by other people's stories of how they've overcome things in their life, in their leadership, and their business. And I think so many of us wear those hats. I mean, we try to separate it, right? We're like, oh, this is my personal life, and this is my leadership life, and this is what I do in my entrepreneurial life. But we're the same person wearing all these hats. So I like to bring it together to see how people juggle it and balance it.
And I am a firm believer that there is nothing like the power of story to have tremendous impact in our own lives and in the lives of others. Sharing our experiences can inform and influence people in ways that we can't even begin to imagine. And so I love to hear that that's what you're doing with your podcast. We met at a conference down in Atlanta, and I was so moved by your enthusiasm and your passion for the work that you're doing. I said, "Ooh, you've got to come on Conversations with TO because I just have to share this with people." I knew you'd have a story. And one of the things we talked about was your work with a dance company that you were involved with. Were you a dancer as a child?
Yeah, I took dance classes here and there, but my most formal training is when I was in my late 20s. And so I went back to college for dance after I finished with my MBA at Hampton University. But I've always been a mover. I always did talent shows and all the things. But it was great to be able to start that dance company with two friends, and we've been around for 20 years this month.
Wow, get out of
Mhm.
here.
Yeah, we
That's
just celebrated. So it's been a great way of committing to ministry, sisterhood, and mentorship and dance. And so we focus on all of that.
Well, I know about that dance life. I have a little dancer, and she told me she just got out to an adult dance class this week, and just how much she enjoyed it because she did
Oh,
so much of it growing up, and I'm glad to see she's keeping in touch with those things that bring her joy. So
yeah, I love that.
that's cool. So, do you have a final thought for not just the ladies, but for anyone who
Mhm.
could use a word of encouragement, as we all can?
Yeah, absolutely. One thing that I love to leave audiences with is that you can already do the thing that's on your mind. And so it's something on your mind because we always have something on our mind. And sometimes we lay in the bed and we stare at the ceiling and we're thinking constantly of the thing that we have not yet approached, that we have not yet accomplished. And I want to be that voice that reminds you that you have already completed the thing, it's already done. You're just in the journey of doing it. So just go ahead and start the journey.
I love that. I'm going to put your website up again real quick here so that folks who may want to know how to follow up with Desiree can do so. She is a gifted and wonderful spirit. And if you find yourself in a place where you could use someone to just have a conversation, I'm sure she'd love to hear from you. And you can also check out her podcast and find her book. Desiree, thank you so much for coming on Conversations with TO. I am tickled pink that I had a chance to meet you. I had to go all the way to Atlanta to find somebody who lives 20 minutes away from me here in Maryland. But that's how life works. There are no coincidences. So thank you.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
All right. That's going to do it for this edition of Conversations with TO. Thank you so much for joining us, and we'll see you again next time.